We are super excited to welcome Kris SD from Sync Songwriter to the show. Welcome, Kris.
Hey, thank you very much for having me on. This is great.
Yeah, we're super stoked about this.
This is an opportunity for our listeners to learn from somebody in the industry about how to get their songs heard.
Yes.
We ourselves are lyricists. We're learning the music part of it, but we talk to people who are already out there doing it. And then the people who listen to us are wanting to get into the business, wannabe singer-songwriters like ourselves. And so this is a great opportunity for them to learn from somebody who is really out there doing it.
Yes. So we'll just start with, first off, tell our listeners a little bit who maybe don't know what Sync is.
Sure. So maybe the best way to explain it is to tell the story about how I got into it.
Yes.
So essentially, I was a music producer. I've been producing records for 20 plus years, and I was up in Canada, started in Toronto, and had the good fortune of working on, records that won Juno Awards as a producer and stuff like that. Got seven nominations, and five of them won Juno Awards. They're like the Canadian Grammys. And then basically was trying to figure. I worked with major label artists, and I worked with indie artists. So I was trying to figure out, like, how could these indie artists that I was working with, how could they get their career moving forward? Because I go into the studio, their music would be just as good as a lot of the major labels I'd work with, and yet they didn't have, the managers and the labels and the agencies like propelling them along. And so it was like, how are we going to make this work? Because I'd be in there usually at a cut rate. I'd cut my rate. I'd work with them in the studio, put my blood, sweat, and tears into it. And then they'd release the record, they pile into their van, or they would go on social, whatever their model was to try to promote it. And it was just like crickets, nothing would happen. So, and it was right about then that sync licensing became a thing. And I didn't even know what it was. I was like, what is this, And one of the things about it was I would hear, without even knowing what it was, I'd just hear through the grapevine or people that, knew someone who knew somebody, like, yeah, they got their music into like this show or this movie or this ad, and they paid their rent for the year. And I'm like, what is going on with this, And so as I investigated it, I realized how important it was going to be, because up till then, right, maybe a little bit before that, it was not cool to get your music into shows, movies, and ads. It was kind of like selling out. It was like nobody, wanted to be on a lot of those like cable shows that or maybe a car ad or whatever it was. I just like, this is not, I'm not being true to myself as an artist. This is not good. So it started to change because more and more people started to watch different kinds of shows, right? Then we got like, we had cable, and then went to satellite, and then to streaming, and all this stuff started to, populate with all these different kinds of shows and kinds of, different movies were coming out. You could go watch like B movies and indie movies, and like, now of course you got like all these different streaming platforms shooting their own movies, right?
Yes.
So there's all kinds of stuff out there now. You're not stuck with this kind of like 12 to 50 channel cable thing, right? Where you're just, whatever they spoon feed you is kind of what you want to watch.
Right.
And then no one wants to have their music on those. So I realized like how great it could be. And the thing that struck me most about it was the idea that it wasn't just the money, because you can get paid a lot of money doing it. You get a sync fee up front normally. So when you get, you get your song accepted, for a show, movie, or ad, they pay the sync fee that's often in the thousands of dollars. And then you get back end royalties every time it's aired or streamed or whatever.
Oh, wow.
And those come in. So it can be really great. But the thing was, what got me the most was the exposure. And that could, just to give you like a couple of examples, high-end examples, I work with indie artists all the time. Like, what I do is I introduce them to people in TV and film, and that's how those relationships get made. And, I had one who, they got 2 minutes of their song in Pain Hustlers, the movie Pain Hustlers. And they said, it was basically a music video for their song. They were like, we had a whole song in this movie. And it was insane. Like, they were kind of like, your average indie musician, And within weeks, their Spotify's or off the charts,
Wow.
because
That's
they
really
get
cool.
because everyone's Shazamming their song, right? Or
Yeah,
figuring out
right.
what song is this. Then they're going to Spotify or wherever, whatever platform, they're spinning it. And then they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. And then the algorithm says, look at all these streams that are going on. So it then tells all the rest of the catalog of theirs they get bumped up, right, by the algorithm. So then people discover their music. So all of their stuff starts to go. They got called by festivals. They got called by labels.
Yeah.
They got written up in Billboard magazine, like
Wow.
from one sync placement. So
Yeah.
that's how powerful it can be. So to that's sort of like the dream of what that is, right? So what
Mhm.
actually sync licensing is, if you want to just put it in really simple terms, it's just a movie studio, TV studio, or ad agency coming to you and say, hey, can we license your song? Meaning that you still own it. It's your song. We just want to use it and we're going to pay
Mm,
you to use it. And here are our terms, like we're only going to use it in this part, in this show. And they'll want it in perpetuity, right? Because they'll want to say like, we don't want to have to renegotiate in 5 years. You got to say license it to us forever, but you get to say yes or no. And they don't own any part of it. They can't do anything else with it. And you license your music to them to use because they love your song and it's doing something really cool for the scene. And that's the essence of it. And you can get into movies and TV shows and ads typically, and then online stuff like micro licensing is with like YouTube videos.
wow.
Some people blow up because they get a song into like a wedding video of all things, and sometimes these wedding videos, seriously, they go like, there's like a lot of viewers for some stuff, and then the song gets really big. So that's that's sort of the nutshell of sync licensing.
Very cool. When we were in Americana Fest a few years ago, we
Mhm.
actually got to watch a performance of several people who had their music on Yellowstone.
Yep.
And the people who were putting on this concert, I guess, for lack of a better word, were the people who go out and find the sync, like find the artists that they want to use for sync. So that's probably the people you might be in touch with then. Is that
Yeah.
safe to say?
Yes, exactly. So that's a perfect segue into like how does it work, right? Is essentially the people you want to know are called music supervisors. They're the people who essentially are hired by the studios to handle all the music. So they go find the music, they go clear the music, meaning that they check and make sure the copyright's good. Like if you say,
Mhm.
hey, I've got this song, like, do you have an illegal sample in there?
Sure.
Let's just I use this example a lot, and I use different people in the band. Today, let's call it bass players. Let's pick on bass players. Bass player in your band says, "Hey, I was in the room when you wrote that, and I
Yeah.
want, and it's literally like queued up to like go.
Yep.
And guess what happens? Supervisor loses their job over stuff like that. So
Oh,
that's why
wow.
clearance is so important, right? The paperwork essentially and verifying, crossing the T's, dotting the I's.
Yeah.
So that's what music supervisors do. Sometimes the showrunners, like the producers and directors, will come to them and say, hey, I'm making this movie and these are the songs I want, and they already know what they want. Then the supervisor might say, okay, well, I can get you like half of these. The Rolling Stones one is going to cost you $500,000. So then they're like, oh, really? Okay. So then they're like, well, can we get some indie band that sounds like that vibe? And like, definitely. They're way cheaper. So this, before I get into that, I'll just, so let me describe the landscape a little bit more. So you have the music supervisors who are sort of that they're on cloud nine. Those are the people you really want to know. They're the ones who actually place the music. Then a lot of musicians are indie labels, major labels, like everybody is saying, well, how do we get our music into TV and film? And there's two main paths for that. There are music libraries, which are these huge repositories of music, and you can just upload your music to it. You could do it right after you watch this. You could go out and upload your music to a non-exclusive library, basic contract, or whatever. Or you could go with an exclusive library, which is harder to get into because they're going to vet you and they demand that they are the only people who can shop your music. You still own
Oh,
everything, but they're like, we don't want anybody else pitching it because we're trying to work your stuff. And then there's sync agents who are kind of like exclusive libraries, but more proactive. So they'll sign you exclusively typically, and they're actually out there pitching your music. So then you're like, great. Like, why I mean, why do I even need to be here? Kris from Sync Songwriter, you know? It's because like everybody and their dog has a record out. Like
Yeah.
anybody with a computer and GarageBand has it up on SoundCloud, right? They
Yeah.
have it on Spotify. There's millions and millions of tracks out there. So, you know, you can test this easily. All you do is ask your friends who are musicians and ask them how many songs they've gotten into shows, movies, and ads in from the libraries they've been in, or maybe they got a sync agency. You might get the odd one off, you know, like, oh, I got one. Maybe you got somebody who got lucky, or I got three over like 7 years or something. That's not bad, you know, it's not great. But most people are gonna be like zero, right? Got
Yeah.
nothing. And it's just because it's like playing a lottery, you know, you're just a needle in a haystack. And so that was the biggest problem that I was trying to confront with the indie bands I was working with. I was like, why can't I go straight to the top? Why do I have to go through these middle people, you know, to kind of do that? And I'm like, I should be able to get these relationships, you know? Well, it wasn't easy. It took me a long time of going to everything I was invited to, conferences and all this stuff. But eventually, I got there, you know, it took me years to do that. And what I've do in Sync Songwriter is I shortcut that for indie songwriters. It's like, you don't have to spend years trying to develop a network, you know? I can literally introduce you. So what I do is I'm not a agent or a library. I'm not a middleman. I'm literally somebody who introduces indie songwriters directly to music supervisors, and they form the relationships. It has nothing to do with me. I'm just
Very
like,
cool.
I'm sort of like the door guy, you know, at a really great club. And I can get you in. And when you go in, you're on your own, but you're in with the right people, you know? Now, when I say you're on your own, I mean where you take the relationships after I help you set those up. But I do teach indie songwriters how to do everything along the way before they meet the supervisors. So I've got like a 6-month course, and it's only open once a year. We go through every like thing you got to know that's really important to know. Nothing more. I'm not trying to turn people into entertainment lawyers, but just like so they understand, you know, the foundation of what they need to know. And yeah, so that's sort of the landscape, I guess, of how that works.
That's really cool. So we saw or we read about the art of the song pitch, right? So that's the
Yeah.
class, correct? And then the Sync Songwriter is it like a platform? Like, how does it work?
Yeah.
So yes,
Yeah.
that's
So basically, Sync Songwriter is like the umbrella, you know, of what I do, you know, sort of what I am. Sync Songwriter is like the entity, you know, and then within that there are some things. We have a online recording studio. We
yes.
have the art of the song pitch, which is actually more than a course. It's honestly, it's honestly a way to meet supervisors that's kind of dressed up as a course.
Okay.
So yeah, you don't not just coming into it just to learn about sync. Like there's lots of stuff online that you can learn. You can cobble things together. I mean, our course is certainly like I'm more about results, you know. I'm definitely a results oriented person, and I want to make sure that things actually happen. And it doesn't happen just by knowing about it. You've got to actively do something.
Yes.
And the way to succeed in music licensing that works, and why we get so many sync placements at Sync Songwriter, you know, we got the big Honora win this year.
Yeah.
You know, what won 5 Oscars or something. We got 2 of our members got 5 tracks into that movie. I mean, it was just unbelievable. I did an interview just earlier today with one of the artists, you know, for somebody else, and they're getting so much attention. It's crazy. So
yes.
those happen because of who you know. You know, it's that old adage, but it doesn't have to be dirty. You know, it doesn't have to be slimy. It doesn't have to be like, oh, nepotism and like schmoozing and all that stuff. It does not have to be that way. It literally can be just like what we're doing right here, right now. You know, we're getting to know each other. Well, I mean, I'm doing all the talking because it's an interview, but you know, but we're getting to know each other. And I could probably, I'm guessing, assuming you guys feel the same way, I feel like I could get a hold of you at later sometime if something comes up. Say, hey, I got this idea, or you know, and you'd be like, oh, it's Kris. You know,
yeah.
That's a relationship, and we just met. So that's what it is in music licensing. It's like I introduce you to supervisors who are cool. They're not these suits, that go to work and count bean counters. They're musicians. They love people in bands. They're like just like us. They love music. That's how they got their job.
Yeah.
And they're cool to hang out with. I was just hanging out with a good close friend of mine who's a big supervisor in Nashville like last week. So, they're just fun hangs. They're really cool people, but they're like so in demand. They're so everybody wants them because of what they could do. So they're hard to get a hold of. Like really what I mean is next to impossible. If you cold email them, I'm sure you found that out. And they don't respond because they can't, because they get hundreds of emails a day and everyone's sending them music and they can't listen to everything. So they go to their go-to group. They have a go-to group that they go out and they kind of send their briefs to and their music out to. So briefs are basically these little like asks for music. Usually they come in like a little form and they say, hey, we're looking for random, right? Summertime pop, female vocal, electric guitar, kind of alt, but with harmonies, it's got to sound kind of pretty or something. Who knows, right? And they say it's going to go in this kind of show or whatever, and this kind of scene. And then if you've got something like that, then you send your music for that. If you don't have it, you don't send it, because they want to know that you whatever. So anyway, I'm going on, and I don't know if
it's so cool.
It's fascinating.
Yes, it is.
It's such a neat, like newer thing, because you're right. It's always been the grind of trying to get your music out there and to have people listen to it, and it's always got to be the right person. So it gives people hope that write music, and that maybe someday I'll be on TV, or people be listening to me on TV, because I'm one of those people who Shazams every show I watch.
I think a lot of us do that, I certainly do, in all kinds of scenarios, grocery stores, in a restaurant or whatever. But I want to really quickly address hope. There should be no such thing as hope in sync licensing. Hope, and I borrowed this idea, but hope is great in a lifeboat, right? If you're stranded at sea and you've got no, say it's the old days, you have no GPS, you've got no EPIRB, nothing that you can signal anything, and you're floating out there and no one knows you're gone. Hope is an amazing human attribute that has gotten us through some real sticky situations, and allowed us to survive. And because that hope can keep you hanging on. And so that's really good in a lot of circumstances. It's bad for sync licensing, because sync licensing is all about a strategy. It's all about like working smarter, not harder. So it's not like hoping for anything. It's like, you can hope on small things. Like you send something off, like I hope they like it and I hope I get a sync placement, but you've already done the due diligence,
the work,
right?
Yeah.
You've already done the work, but you can't sit there, put your music into a library and say, I believe the universe presents things to me if I really focus on it. I'm not saying that's not true. I'm not saying maybe the universe does do that, but it doesn't work consistently. Okay. You have to have a plan. And so that's the thing about sync license, is that you've got to make sure that you know what to do. And the thing that you need to do is you need to get relationships. It's about who you know. It's about connecting with the right people, because you're up against millions and millions of tracks.
Yes. Right? Gosh. Yes. Yeah.
Great point.
Gosh, yes, it is.
That's so, so good for people to hear. Don't sit on your laurels and hope it's going to happen. Have a plan. And work with someone like you to help you develop that plan.
Yes. I love it.
And it's easy for me to sit here and say, oh yeah, you should come and work for me, because that's like what I do, right? I mean, of course, everyone would want to say that. So what I try to do is I try to approach it as a way to help and a way to find truth, So it's not about, the reason I believe that Songwriter is so successful is because of that. It's like, if you build something or you do something that is good, that works, and that you're actually going the extra mile and you're putting the effort in and you mean it, everything else follows, So if people are interested in musical success, or money or like finding the perfect person, you know, in a relationship. It's about being truthful to what you're
Mhm.
doing and who you are, right?
Yep.
You're not going to find that soulmate if you're putting an air on, you know?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You know, we're all going to comb our hair and brush our teeth and, you know, look nice, maybe nicer
Yep.
than we normally do at home. That's fine. That's not faking anything. But
Right.
we got to be who we are, you know? And the same thing with like your music. When you want to get your music out there as a songwriter, you need to be authentic to yourself. And this
Mhm.
is really an amazing coincidence because guess what is the most important thing in sync licensing to succeed? I just said it. It's authenticity.
Yes.
Yourself.
Supervisors
Yeah.
will tell you that over and over and over. Now, the argument, somebody might say, well, hey, Kris, you said that being authentic is so important. Well, then what about all these other songs that get in there that, you know, you got to write for those, right? If you're going to do like a spaghetti Western thing, or you can do a hip hop
Sure.
track or whatever, I mean, you got to kind of fake it in there. You got to kind of learn how to get in there. It's like, nope, you don't. Because here's the thing. There's a home for everything. If you do death metal, if you do Korean hip hop, throat singing, meditation music, really esoteric stuff, you know, beyond that, there's a home for you. So you need
Yeah.
to know how to target your music because there's so many opportunities out there. So think of yourself like in like a sphere, you know, all around you. What you don't do is you don't take your music and just go shotgun approach, right? Just
Yeah.
like see where it sticks, you know?
Yeah.
Like if
Yeah.
someone hears it, they're going to love it and they're going to do something with it. It's not the way it works. They might be like, I love this. I would listen to this in my car. I can't use this. You're wasting my time,
Mhm.
you know? So what you do is you figure out what you do, be authentic, who you are, what your sound is. You can be eclectic. That's fine. You can just divide it into silos, like I call them. You put them into little parts, put your blues stuff here and your punk rock stuff here and
Yep.
your classical there, and you kind of do them separately. But let's say you kind of do one, you have a sound, a specific sound. You take that sound and then you do research and find out which shows do those fit into, what they're there for, what supervisors are on those shows. Well, guess what? They're probably looking for music like yours, you know? So that's the beginning. The trick is getting a hold of them, right? That's the
Yeah.
hard part, but that's where I come in. But that's like
Yeah.
an example of kind of working smarter, not harder, you know, not like hoping or just like, I think my music's great. Just anyone's got to hear it. They're going to love it and do something. It's like, there's like, they can't, you know?
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
a curiosity question.
Yes.
So I know there are some people who get hired to just write songs for certain things, like
Mhm.
people in Nashville. We've had other people on here who will talk
That's-
about that. That's what they do as their job, is they have a deadline, they write a song. How does that go along with sync music, or is that part of sync music?
It's totally part of it. Yeah. There are talented people who can do exactly the opposite of what I just said. So they can literally, you know, they sit down and they think like what's going to fit in here and how that's going to work and all of that. The reason that I never promote that, you know, is because it's in the vast minority of people who are able to do that well. Because
Yes.
you've got to, it's like maybe it's like being a good actor, but even then I think great actors get into the character. They believe the part. They're not pretending. I think. I don't
Mhm.
know. I'm not an actor. But there are people who can fake it in a really great way, you know? But they're far and few between. And your easiest path as a songwriter to hit the mark is to be authentic. But the biggest reason that I promote that authenticity isn't simply because it's the easier and most direct path to get to where you want to go. It's because you don't have to betray yourself as an artist. Your
Yes.
fans can love you, right? Still, you're not
Yep.
having to pretend you're something else, you know?
Mhm.
So that's the big reason. But you're right. There are people who do that, but again, they're specialized and they're in
Yes.
the minority, and that's all they do all the time.
Yep.
And yeah, so that's something to think about.
Well, and I think, yeah, you become a miserable person if you're always pretending to be someone else, you know? So I think it's such
I would,
good
but I don't
advice.
know.
I mean, I would. Yeah, I would.
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, who am I today? You know?
Yeah. But
So,
maybe you never know. I mean, maybe there's people out there who, that's kind of what they do. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm sure the people that, like you said, that are super specialized, that that's their job, is to write every day for different avenues. But yeah,
Yeah,
like if you're being the artist and trying to be someone entirely who you aren't, like how long can you put that act on, is, so that's a
exactly.
very, very good point for authenticity. So tell us a little bit about the Sundown Session Studio. Are you still doing all of that? Are you doing
Yeah.
online recordings?
So when I first decided, so what happened was, I was in Toronto and then uh, got some, fortunately won some awards doing that, and then I wanted to go to LA and do some stuff, and then I had a immigration lawyer, and I was like, hey, can I, get down there? And she's like, well, you can probably get a visa and you can start that way. And I was like, is it hard to get a green card? She says, you're like on the edge, can apply, but whatever. And then I thankfully got nominated as Engineer of the Year that year. And I called her up
Wow.
and I said, hey, will this work? She says, oh, yeah, this will be great. So I was able to get a green card, moved to Los Angeles because that's where kind of everybody in the world goes once they reach a certain stage, if they want to keep going higher. I mean, that's a big broad brush. There's tons of people in all kinds of places. And, Sweden, the pop in Sweden is immaculate. And there's, Nashville for country and all that. But LA is sort of like the Mecca, I guess,
Yep.
mostly. And so when I got down there with my wife, we got pregnant with our daughter. And it was like, I don't want to be spending 10, 12-hour days in studios anymore. I want to
Yeah.
be around for her. And so I thought, you know what? I got this great idea. I'm going to move my studio online. And well, guess what? Lots of other people had the same idea, as I discovered. So, but I did it anyway. Didn't know what I was doing. Was bleeding money, just because I
Wow.
didn't know how to understand, like, how do you get the message out online? And I had never done that before. So I learned how, and eventually the studio started to go. And then we got into sync licensing with the studio still going, and the studio's grown, and Sync Songwriter's grown. And so now we're always busy. I was literally talking to one of my producers today about something, a sync opportunity actually, and they're busy, and so we got lots of stuff going on. We got lots of music going, in and out. There's lots of sync placements that happen through Sundown. We're not sort of just about that. The sort of the mantra, the mission statement for me was producing world-class music for an indie budget because
Yeah.
we don't have the overhead of big studios because we're virtual. We're just online.
Yeah.
So we're not
It's
good.
really
Don't come
cool.
to us if you're a jazz band. If you need to play all together, in a room, we can't help
Yeah.
you, right? You should definitely go to a brick and mortar
Yeah.
studio for that. But most other things we can help. And a big thing that we do is we don't just record, we actually bring our production chops to it. So we like to co-produce or produce. That's kind of our thing. And if you're like, hey, I've got all my own ideas and I want to do 19 guitar tracks and I want to pick the right one and everything, it's like, I love that about you, but we can't help you. You need to go do that with someone else, sit in your studio,
Yeah.
nitpick over things because we can't, the model of what we do doesn't support that. So that's kind of what Sundown is. And we've recorded, lots and lots of music that's gotten publishing deals and record deals and we're the supervisors love what we do, so we keep doing it.
Awesome.
That is fantastic. Okay, so we have to ask. We read that you used to write songs. Do you still do songwriting at all?
Yeah, funny you should ask. It's funny, I haven't done that in so long. And this year, I'm actually writing my own music for a change. So I'm
So
actually,
Cool.
yeah. So I'm working on some music now, which has been great, to kind of
Love it.
revisit it. And it's, as you can tell, I set up this little kind of a temporary little studio in my place. Gonna be moving that soon, but yeah, we're gonna be doing some recording and really looking forward to that. And I have a penchant for theoretical physics. I don't know why, but I was always watching YouTube videos and reading a lot of books on relativity, and so I'm actually working on a theory right now at the same time. So it's just sort of
My gosh.
those are the two little things that are sort of happening. Yeah.
those are
That's
big
awesome.
things.
So yeah, that's big things. That's really cool. I'm glad to hear that you're back in the studio and doing things. It's
Yes,
exciting.
That's it's
So
come full circle.
that's right. That's
Well,
right.
look at this. I got my first two mailing list fans here.
That's right.
And you haven't even heard me. You sound so eager, and you haven't even heard my music. So wait till you hear me like, yeah, I can't seem to get through to them. I don't know why they don't pick up the phone anymore.
We love pretty much all music.
Yeah, there's not much we don't listen to. We're
It's-
pretty eclectic in our
Yep.
in our love
Excellent.
of music.
I'm still
Yeah.
looking for some opera to love. That's the only place that I haven't found something that I truly love.
Yeah.
But I just haven't found it yet.
Yeah. I went through the same thing. And I'll tell you the music, the thing that introduced me to opera. And I was like, oh my gosh, can be great. And it's going to sound weird, but I don't think I didn't see it live because I don't watch a lot of TV. Ironically, I'm in sync licensing.
That's
But
funny.
I know how to do all the research, and I'm the music part, right? But I don't sit around and watch a ton of TV. Only when I need to, for research and stuff.
Yeah.
But it was on, one of those. It was the British. What's the British like American Idol thing that they used to do? Old. There was this guy named Paul. Anyway, look him up. Paul Potts. He's like it was one of those shows where they get average people would come on with these amazing voices, and that was the story with Simon Cowell, and that one.
I can't think of what it's called either. But...
Yeah, if you look up Paul Potts and you get off the call and watch that, and his little story, go on YouTube, find the little clip, and it's not long, and he comes on stage and he sings opera, and he's not even like a professional. And I was like, wow, holy man, I feel that, and that was my first introduction. And then I've kind of gone off and discovered more of it since, but
I love it.
I'd recommend that. And if that doesn't do it for you, maybe opera's not your thing. That's fine.
You never know. That's right.
You never know.
Oh my gosh. Well, we would love it if you would do a shameless plug for all things Kris SD. Like, first of all, do you have a social media presence that you would like to plug? And all the things.
Yeah, thank you very much. Like I if people, just reach out if you want to be the first thing I need to say is that my whole life is short. And I believe in, as I was saying earlier, it's not about doing the right thing. It's about doing the thing that matters most, and then all the other stuff will follow, So if you want to get your music into TV and film, I'm not here trying to sell you something. In fact, we're not even open for another year. We only open once a year. So you can't even buy anything from me anyway. But I would love to have you in my community, because every week I send out videos with chock full of tips and tricks and all that about getting your music into TV and film. There's lots of other sort of things that happen. I work with some partners and things who do things like friends. They're not just like business partners, or friends. And I send only the things that really are going to change your music career or your life. Like, I'm super, super, super nitpicky about that. I treat my community like gold. If you want to come in and just be in a comfortable place with cool people that are all trying to do the same thing you are, and learning about sync in a real way and connecting, then go to syncsongwriter.com. And I'll keep it simple. Just go to the website, syncsongwriter.com. You can just sign up. We're not going to get spammed. It's just going to be, we're very careful about that. We treat you as friends. And so you can come in and do that, where we have a Facebook page. So again, keeping it simple. We probably have Instagram, I have a team that works with me. They probably have an Instagram. They probably have all this other stuff, but I'm not going to complicate things. So either syncsongwriter.com or head over to the Facebook, Sync Songwriter, Sync Songwriter on Facebook. And if you want to know more about the studio, just reach out through that, because otherwise I'm just going to be spewing out all this excess information and URLs, and it's going to be dumb.
I love it.
So.
Well,
perfect.
Absolute pleasure.
Oh my gosh, yes.
About all of this stuff. Thank you so much.
Yes.
It was, I got to say, like, I hadn't heard of you before. This is the first time I've met you, first time I've been on. This has been one of my favorite podcast interview things that I've ever done, honestly. And the reason for that, I think, is that of course you've got great questions and all that, but I can just like feel your enthusiasm of why you're doing what you're doing. And I identify with that, because that's exactly, you're doing it for real. You're not just you know, I'm sure you're not getting off and looking like how many like viewers are we, you know, what's our YouTube hits doing? You know, you're not,
Yeah.
you don't sound like that at all. You're in it
Nope.
for the music and you're in it for the truth. And I love that. I can feel it from you. So thank you for that.
Oh,
That
thank you.
means a lot.
It does.
Thank you.
It does.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just two sisters out here having fun.
Yep.
That is so awesome.